You must have heard the popular adage, laugh and the world laughs with you. But do you know how it concludes? It first appeared in Ella Wheeler Wilcox's poem of 1883 called Solitude. Let me recite a few lines for all of my viewers here. Laugh and the world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone. For the sad old earth must borrow its mirth, but has trouble enough of its own. Sing, and the hills will answer. Sigh, it is lost on the air. The echoes bound to a joyful sound, but shrink from voicing care. Rejoice, and men will seek you. Grieve, and they turn and go. They want full measure of your pleasure, but they do not need your woe. Be glad, and your friends are many. Be sad, and you lose them all. To summarize, people always want cheerful company. So keep your sense of humor intact and make the world a happy place to live in. We at PlanetSpark are here to take the plunge along with you all and come into this mission where we learn a lot about stand-up comedy. So let's start our session of today with Stand Out at Stand-Up Comedy. I am Sapna Mahadevan, your host for this wonderful evening here, and a very warm welcome to each one of you to PSTV. And here we are with the introductory slide. Explore yourself at the comic level. Yes. So let's move ahead and look at all the coming up segments that we have specially curated for our viewers for today. And there it is. Here are the list of activities that we have planned up, a gamut of activities, I should say. And we start with what is stand-up comedy. And then also we have a segment where we amuse ourselves with a little bit of trivia for today. And the main agenda that we have for today is discussing about the different types of stand-up comedy that there are, right? So in the first episode, we introduced stand-up comedy to you and told you all about how and where did it originate from. And in the second episode, that is yesterday, we gave you a glimpse of all the benefits that stand-up has to offer, right? And today we are going to see the different types that there are in stand-up comedy. And let me tell you, again, there is wide array that you can be choosing from if you want to perform a stand-up comedy act. So we will be letting you in on all of the details today. Apart from that, we have the quiz time. There is Guess the Emoji. There is also a segment called Guess the Comedian. There is a crossword segment where you need to find out the hidden words. So yes, you need to have keen observation. And then, of course, we have decipher the idioms of one particular idiom. So you might be knowing by now that idioms are phrases that have a hidden meaning. You cannot take them quite literally, right? And apart from that, we have a recommendation of the day, and there are icebreaker questions as always, so that we get to know each other better. Yes. So how does this episode sound to you? Let me know in the chat box there. I can see hellos and waves there in the chat box. Thanks a lot for joining in today. And I guarantee you that it is going to be a fun-filled session, an interactive one with a lot of learning as well. Yes. So do stay tuned in here with me as we move ahead to the first icebreaker question of the day. And here we go. Right. So the first question says, if you could give an advice to your sibling, what would it be? So that's one question, the first one that comes up in our icebreaker segment. And what is that bit of advice that you would want to give to your sibling, maybe? Do let me know in the chat box there. That's interesting, isn't it? Advice that you would want to give to your sibling or maybe to your friend. What is that one wise thing that you're going to say. Okay. Hey there, Sri Devi. Hi. Warm welcome to PSTV. Yes, we were doing story writing, but then since the past two episodes, we have started with stand up comedy vertical. And you can, of course, go back to the videos that you have in YouTube, subscribe to our channel, PlanetSpark, and you can get access to all the videos that there are that we have done in story writing genre. Yes. Um, and work hard. Okay, so Varun tells me work hard is the advice that he would want to give to his sibling. That's wonderful. Working hard always pays off, right? Great. Be patient is another comment that I get here. That's good too. One of them that I would like to add on to this kitty here is maybe um, take everything a little bit easy. Yes, be calm and patient, right? That could be one bit of an advice. And of course, we are going to tell our siblings to work hard, to be patient, to keep on being passionate for their dreams and try to achieve them. Yes, great. So thanks again for all of those answers there. And thanks for those likes as well. And let me move ahead to the next segment. Here we are. What are we discussing today? Yes. So let me tell you, we are going to discuss the different types of stand up comedy. And there are a lot of different types of stand up comedy performances that can be done. So we will be seeing some of them in today's episode, right? And let me also take you to this slide which talks about what is stand-up comedy, right? So let me tell all of my new viewers here that stand-up comedy is a comedy performance which is done in front of a live audience, and we are often addressing the audience directly from the stage. And the comedian is, of course, trying to make the audience laugh, right? That's the motive there. And the performer is known as a comic, a comedian, or also simply as a stand up, right? And these days stand-up comedy has become really popular. It is emerging, and let me tell you, it consists of one-liners, stories, conversations, observations, or even shtick that may incorporate props, music. It could also have magic tricks, and stand-up comedy can be performed almost anywhere. um, you can, if you come to think about it, it is really popular in college festivals, in theaters, in clubs, right? So that's what we know about stand-up comedy here. The motive here is to have your audiences in a belly laugh, right? And to tickle them. Yes. So this is all about stand-up comedy. And now let's move ahead to the next question in our icebreaker round. And okay, I'm so sorry. Before the icebreaker question, we have a little bit of trivia coming up here, and let us amuse ourselves with all of these funny incidents that we have all encountered, right? So I'm sure that you're all going to remember and recollect all that we are going to speak of today. Here is the first bit of trivia, and this says that as uh, little children, and some of you even today would be doing role plays as a teacher, and you would have asked everyone to maintain pin drop silence. Yes, do you do that? Do let me know in the chat box here. So much so that even grandpas and grandmas would have to ask your permission to leave the class. Yes, and then pillows were an apt substitute for our students, and we loved giving remarks on our previous year's notebooks like a teacher. Yes, we all love to play teacher, isn't it? So do let me know in the chat box if you're still doing that. And this is one bit of amusing trivia here, right? Um, any child of young age would have definitely done this one time or the other during their lifetimes. Yes, and I can see smileys coming up here. Richa says yes with emphasis. And great. I have other emojis as well come up here. Um, Vijaya, That is right. So we have always been in awe of our teachers, and one time or the other, we have definitely done a role play like a teacher. Yes, and saying "pin drop silence" in my class has been one of the favorite dialogues, isn't it? Yes, we can all recollect that, right? So that was the first amusing bit of trivia here, and let's now quickly move ahead to the second one. Okay, so here we go. The second bit of trivia that we have here, yes, I can relate to this totally because my mother used to say this quite often. And as parents, they are really concerned about our well-being. So my mother used to say that eat your fruits um, slowly, and see to it that you do not swallow the seed, because otherwise an entire tree will grow inside you. Of course, that was not really possible, because how could seeds grow in a corrosive gut juice with no sunshine, right? But as grown-ups, we realize this now, that we were tricked as kids, but our parents have always said this to prevent us from having unwanted things, right? So that is again one bit of trivia that I am sure all of you would have experienced one time or the other, and especially while eating a watermelon. Yes, because it has many seeds, and in the hurry that children are always in, we tend to eat one or two of the seeds, right? So you would have always heard this dialogue from your parents that an entire tree will grow up if you swallow that seed. Yes. So thumbs up's coming up there in the chat box, and I know all of you can relate to this one. Great. All of this we have encountered, isn't it? So let's now move ahead to the third one. I know curiosity is building up. So let's quickly see what is that third bit of amusing trivia here, and if majority of you have experienced that or not, right? So this is about the shakalaka boom boom magic pencils. Yes. Anyone here in the audience knowing about these magic pencils? Give me a shout out in the chat box there. Yes. If you remember these shakalaka boom boom magic pencils, which were an arm's length long, yes, um, we always thought that whatever we drew was going to come to life when we drew it with this pencil, right? How funny was that? Now we actually understand that it is not so, right? So that was one bit of trivia again, amusing trivia. And Jyoti tells me that yes, she remembers Shakalaka Boom Boom pencils. Right. They were really lengthy in size and more than arm's length, I think. Yes. So that was again the third one there. And let's move ahead to the fourth and the last trivia for today. Here it is. So yes, this is also something that we have really been amused by doing during the winter season, right? Blowing air out in winters and whirls of fog coming out of your mouth. Yes, how many of you still do that? Do let me know in the chat box. Um, Thinking of winters, it reminds me that it is really sweltering hot these days here in this part of the city that I live in, right? And yes, okay, Jennifer tells me that that is something that she still does. Great. Um, Jyoti gives me an emoji there. Lovely. Sri Devi, yes, we all remember doing this, isn't it? And that was an amusing activity to be done during winters, right? Lovely. So these were little uh, things that we remember and recollect from the past, right? And now let's move ahead to the main topic under discussion for today. Here it is, the different types of stand-up comedy. So when you come to think about it, you might not have realized how many different types that there are. Yes. So when I'm going to give you all the names of the different stand-up comedy performances and also tell you a little bit about what that kind of a performance meant, then you're going to really realize that there are actually a wide spectrum from which you can choose, right? So I'm going to cover only some of them in today's episode, so that there is not too much information overload, right? Here is the first one that we have in today's episode. The type of stand-up comedy is called slapstick. And let me tell you, this is super easy to identify because it is one of those comedies or one of those comedy performances which involves a lot of physical movement, right? So the humor in slapstick, it comes from the physical gesturing, the movements, and the situations. It is one of the sillier, simpler forms of comedy and can be seen in early silent era films and today maybe in Mr. Bean and sketch comedy shows, right? And one of them that comes to my mind right now is the shows that we used to watch with the popular comedian Charlie Chaplin, right? The movements that he had, the peculiar style of walking that he had, all of that could be categorized under slapstick comedy, right? So that's the first type of comedy that we have spoken about in today's episode, slapstick, which is really easy to identify because of all of the physical movements that it entails, right? Now, after slapstick, let's move on to the second type of comedy, and that is deadpan. So, now with that name itself, it suggests that this style is also called dry humor and it is defined more by its delivery than the actual content, right? So, it involves delivering jokes without any noticeable change in emotion. Yes. So, as a public speaking expert, I usually tell my children in my class to have proper gestures, to use proper emphasis, and different voice modulation techniques so that they can grab the attention of their audiences, right? But this particular style of comedy is quite in contrast to what we teach our kids in the voice modulation classes, right? So deadpan, let me tell you, is a type of stand-up comedy where the comedian should keep a bored sounding tone, making the joke or the observation come off as sarcastic, right? The humor in deadpan, it comes from the audience's connection between the joke and the contradicting tone of its delivery, right? So just think about it. It's going to sound really funny if the comedian is talking about some serious stuff but keeping a bored expression, and the delivery itself is going to give you the laughs, right? So that is again one other type of stand-up comedy, deadpan, which is also called dry humor. And here the emphasis is more on the style of delivering rather than on the content, right? So this was the second type of stand-up comedy that we saw. And now let's move ahead to the third one, which is self-deprecating, right? So again, self-deprecating would be when a stand-up comedian he makes fun of himself and makes the audience laugh, right? So this is one of those stand-up comedy performances which is really difficult to deliver because you're trying to make fun of yourself and at the same time making the public laugh, right? So self-awareness can be comedy gold if it is done correctly. And this is exactly where this type of humor comes from. So it is a type of humor that relies entirely on making fun of oneself. And the humor comes in how relatable the topics are going to be for the audience, right? Like the comedian can be joking about things uh, ranging from their own bad habits or being socially awkward, or maybe how they always mess up with dates. They do not remember birthdays and anniversaries, and all of this would give a personal experience kind of a tone to the stand-up comedy performance, right? And there are the things that are most common people can relate to, and so it gives a chance to laugh at our own problems experienced by another. Yes. So the audience is definitely going to relate to all the instances that the comedian is bringing up in their live performance, because after all, in everyday life we all experience one and the same, right? So making fun of oneself and in that process making others laugh is called the self-deprecating type of stand-up comedy. Yes. So that's the third one. um, Varun says it's quite interesting. Thanks a lot, Varun. A lot of research has gone into these episodes. We have churned out a lot of information for the stand up comedy vertical, and I'm really glad that you're finding this useful. So, let me move ahead to the fourth type of stand up comedy now. And here it is. The fourth type of stand up comedy is called topical humor. And the most common form of humor for many late night talk shows, topical humor is exactly what it sounds like. And the humor focuses on events, right? So it's easy and accessible humor that makes fun of current events. So the comedian could be talking about the political situation in a country, maybe, or the climatic condition in which the world is in. So any of the current events that is happening, maybe a big event that is currently happening in that particular nationality or around the world, that could be the talk, or the main topic of discussion, around which the comedian centers his jokes, right? The way it is delivered, of course, can overlap with any of the other types of comedy performances that we have on this list. The key is that it is full of relevant culture references, right? So that's another fourth type of stand-up comedy uh, performance type. And this is topical humor, which involves the recent events or the current events that are happening around the world, or maybe which are popular around your culture. Yes. So with this, we have seen four types of stand-up comedy. And now let's move ahead to the next segment. Here we are, and we have an icebreaker question come up there unnoticed. And do give me responses for this one here. If you could sail a boat or fly an aeroplane, what would you choose? That is the question that we have here. Which one of these two intrigues you the most? Do let me know in the chat box there. Would you want to sail a boat or fly an aeroplane? Okay. Pilot. Okay, so Varun says he would like to fly an aeroplane. I think all of us are really in awe of pilots, right? But let me tell you, it is a tough job, and you need to be ever alert, right? Okay, fly an aeroplane again coming up there. I love the water. So, Srisha, I think you would want to sail a boat, isn't it? Great. Fly an aeroplane, I think, is the popular answer that's coming up here in the chat box. And yes, great, lovely. I think I would like to try my hands at both, isn't it? Great. So let's move ahead after that icebreaker question to the next segment. And it is time for some quiz questions. Yes. So you need to answer these questions as fast as you can. I'm going to give you only 30 seconds to answer each question. So you need to be quick, on your toes. And here is the first question for the day. Okay. So how many bones does an adult human have? What do you think would be the correct answer? Number of bones that an adult human has. Okay. Srisha gives me 108. I think that's a guess, is it? Um, 202. Okay, you're quite close. Let me tell you that. Abdul, you're really close. Kavya answering the last question, the icebreaker question that we had here. Kavya Sudha saying she would like to sail a boat. That's interesting, Kavya. And for this question, let me give you the answer for the quiz question. The number of bones that an adult human has are 206. And Rutvik Sankhe, that is the correct answer. Perfect. Kavya also gives me the correct answer. Great. Lovely. So all of you, thanks a lot for attempting. But Rutvik and Kavya, you were on point there. Lovely. So let's move ahead to the next question in our quiz segment. This is it. Who was the first man to walk on the moon? That's quite simple, isn't it? We have been learning about this since ages. Who was the first man to walk on the moon or to step on the moon? Quick answers. Only 30 seconds. The clock is already ticking and you need to be really quick. I can't see any answers coming up there. Yes, Rutvik Sankhe, you're right again. It is, of course, Neil Armstrong, right? There it is. And let's move ahead to the next one. Let me pull this off. Great. Thanks again for all of those answers there. Thanks for correcting that. Wonderful, impressive. Okay. Here is the next one. How many millimeters are there in 1 centimeter? So who knows their math lessons well? Who remembers their math lessons? How many millimeters in 1 centimeter? 1 centimeter is equal to dash millimeters. We have read this. It's quite simple. 100 is not the correct answer. You're mixing it up. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeter. We're asking how many millimeters are there in 1 centimeter. Okay, so let me give you the answer. I don't think that's correct again. Rutvik Sankhe winning all of it. 10 is the right answer. Great. Here it is. Kudos to you. Okay, and here we move on to the next one, which is the nearest star to planet Earth. Okay, and Arf tells me he's having real fun there. Great. I'm so glad, Arf. Kavya, you're right too. 10 is the correct answer. And now we have moved on to the next question, the last one in our quiz time, which is the nearest star to planet Earth. Who knows this? Let us check who's going to be the early bird here. That is correct again. It is the sun. Of course, the sun. Yes, Rutvik Sankhe giving me the correct answer once again. Great going there. And let's move ahead. With that, we come to the end of our quiz time. It was really fun. And we move ahead to the next segment, which is decipher the idiom, right? So today we have another idiom that we have brought out for our dear viewers. Let me again tell you what an idiom is. Okay, Kavya says Mars, but that's not the right answer. It is the sun. Thanks a lot for attempting that, Kavya Sudha. And let's get back on track. We are here at another new segment, which is decipher the idiom, right? So, what is an idiom? Any phrase which has a hidden meaning, and it can't be taken quite literally, right? So, the idiom that we have out here for today is burst out laughing, and it would mean to laugh suddenly and uncontrollably, right? So when you burst out laughing, there are all chances that if you're drinking water, then you're going to spit it out. Yes, so that's how this idiom can be used. To the meaning is to laugh suddenly and uncontrollably. And let me also show you an example of how you can be using that in a sentence. Yes, burst out laughing, the idiom can be used in a sentence like this. Sam will burst out laughing once you tell him that story. I guarantee it. Yes, so that's one sentence how you can be using this particular idiom. So do jot this idiom down in your Google It journal, or maybe make an idiom it journal, right? And of course, learn all of these idioms and impress your audience, right? So here was the idiom for today, burst out laughing. And now let me move ahead to the next icebreaker question. There it is. If you could get a chance to meet anyone famous from history, then who would that figure be? Do let me know in the chat box here. Chance to meet a popular, famous figure in history, then who would that be? It could be anyone that you can think of. Freedom fighters, or maybe authors or comedians. Yes, do let me know in the chat box who would you like to meet. Since we are here talking about stand-up comedy, I think I would really love to meet Charlie Chaplin, right? It would be so much fun. I would just be merry and glad, and I think all of the time I would just burst out laughing, isn't it? Okay, what do we have as answers here? Arf says that he would like to meet Abraham Lincoln. Wow. Okay. Then we have Mahatma Gandhi come up here. Srisha says that was like a tongue twister. Srisha, she says that she would like to meet Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru because he loved children. That's wonderful. And Kavya, really impressive. She would like to meet APJ Abdul Kalam, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And lovely. So thanks again for all of your answers and for being a participative audience here. Let me move ahead into the next segment. Again, these are fun questions for all of you. Guess the emoji is the name of the segment here. I'm going to show you some emojis, and you need to guess what these emojis stand for, right? So here is the first emoji for the day. Using emojis thanks to the popularity of all of these apps, the chat based apps, right? So, what is this emoji? Do let me know in the chat box. Surprised is what Arv tells me, but maybe you all can guess and then I'll give you the right answer. Okay, so let me give you the answer there. It is flashed. That's the name of that emoji there. And moving on to the next one. Yes, yes. What is that? Rutvik, that was not shocked. That was flashed. And this is the next one that we have here. Kavya also says shocking, but that's not that. And the next emoji here, that is correct. Rutvik, you're right. I am not naming it yet because I want all of my people to be guessing the emoji here. And yes, those are correct answers. So let me give you that one. That is the think emoji, thinking emoji, right? Now, moving ahead to the next one. There we go. What's that? Thinking is correct, Kavya. Great going there. Niti Goswami, thanks for your answer. Thinking is right. Mohua Chakravarti says upset. So let's check what this particular emoji is. It is not upset, but it is unamused. Yes, that is the emoji there. And awful. Awful is not quite as same as unamused. Yes. So now let's move ahead. There we have the next one. Rutvik says disappointed, but kind of like yes. This might be the one that you all would know. Guess the emoji. I get sad there in my chat box. Showing the teeth. What is that emoji there? That is grimacing, right? And what grimacing means is when you show some kind of disgust or disapproval, maybe, right? That's grimacing. And let's move ahead to the next one. There we are. What is that? That is right there on the face. We get shock here in the chat box. Niti says shock. And let me reveal that one for you. It is actually sad, right? So those were the emojis. And kudos to all of you. Beautiful job at attempting what those emojis mean. I know sometimes we tend to use one instead of other, right? And anxious and irritated. No, I'm sorry, that's not the correct answer. We have sad here. And let's move ahead to the next segment. You can also let me know which one is your favorite emoji, right? The one that you usually use a lot while chatting with someone. Yes. So, yes, expecting some answers from you in the chat box. And You can keep writing to me. I would definitely look out for all of those answers. And I am going to now move ahead to the next segment, which is again types of stand up comedy. We saw four of them earlier on. And now let's continue and let me tell you more about the different types, right? So Neeti says happy is the one that is her favorite. That is quite like me, Neeti. High five to you. Happy is the one that I would also use a lot. And I love all of those emojis that you've sent me there. Great. And let's get back to the types of stand-up comedy. We have the next one, which is observational humor. Yes. And this particular type of stand-up comedy is one of my favorites, let me tell you that, because it is a form of humor which is based on anything that happens in our mundane lives, right? So it is kind of an observation of everyday life and then making humor out of it, right? So it is one of the main types of humor in stand up comedy. The comedian makes an observation about something from everyday life, an everyday thing that is rarely noticed or discussed. And the humor is based on the premise of have you ever noticed? Which has become a comedy cliche these days, right? So, this type of humor usually takes the form of long monologues of personal experiences, right? So, it's quite interesting to see how everyday mundane situations are turned around into humorous ones just by noticing, having keen observation, and you know, saying out that those points aloud to the audience and making them laugh, right? So once we hear observational humor set, it really makes us thinking as to how we could have missed that, right? So that's what is special about observational humor. And I really love this style of stand up comedy, right? And before I move further, let me move ahead let me go and check my comment section again. Kavya says the emoji with the one with the halo, that's her favorite. And Neeti says thanks. Okay, lovely. So let's move ahead into the next type of stand up comedy that we have here, which is black comedy, right? So, what it means is again, comedy which is dark, which is really serious, which has a subject matter which may be of a serious undertone or of a dark undertone. And it's all about the philosophy that when things are not going in the right direction, then maybe we should turn to laughter. Yes. So this comedy should not make humor out of the situation themselves, but it uses satire to point out, mock, and ultimately laugh at these situations, right? So this humor is hard to do meaningfully and can sometimes border on shock value, which is humor that aims to offend its audience just because it can, right? So the subject matter is really grim and dark. And whenever things are not going in the right direction, we use humor to turn it around, and we talk about those situations and make it humorous. Yes. So that's what is black comedy all about. Moving ahead to the next one on our list, we have character comedy, right? So let me tell you, character comedy is when a comedian performs as a character that they have created. It could be a fictitious character, it could be a character that they have met in real life and they take inspiration from it, right? So now, notable character comedians include Tim Allen, who plays handyman in Home Improvement, and his stand-up routines are if you would have seen this kind of a comedy, then you would understand what a character comedy is all about. And many comedians, let me tell you, they use this type of comedy even though the characters they are famous for are very different from their real self, right? So that's what is another type of stand-up comedy, which is character comedy. We've already seen 7 of the types, and now let's do the last one for today, which is the 8th one, and it is a musical comedy, right? Now, this one is a form of alternative comedy where humor mostly comes from music. Yes. So, while few comedians may use this style of comedy for their entire show, there may be others who use it only for a small part of their routine, right? So, again, this is one which involves music in their comedy, and the name itself suggests that, right? So with that, we have seen 8 peculiar types of stand-up comedy performances. And with that, let me move ahead to the next Google it word, which is premise. So let me tell you, the noun which is premise, would mean a previous statement or some kind of a proposition from which another is inferred or some conclusion is inferred, right? And when we talk about premise as a verb, then it means an argument or maybe a theory on which you base some decision, right? So that's the meaning of the word, the noun premise. Do go ahead and check out that word in Google, jot it down in your Google It journal. Yes. And do let me know in the chat box if you knew that there is a difference in the way the noun premise and the verb premise were pronounced. Do let me know that in the chat box. Yes. So now let's move ahead to our next segment, which is a fun segment, Guess the Stand-Up Comedian. Here is the first Indian stand-up comedian coming up on my screen. Can you guess who this comedian is? Definitely gives us a lot of laughs. Um, Quickly in the chat box, if you can name this comedian. That is correct. It is, of course, Zakir Khan, right? And we have another one here, another Indian comedian coming up there. Mohua, I think I'm getting your answers a lot late. Mohua is giving me one of the name of the emojis, grinning face. Thanks a lot, though, Mahua. And I love your name. Okay, what's the name of this comedian? Indian comedian, very popular one at that. And let me give you that name there. Anubhav Singh Bassi, right? Great going there with that. Let me give you the recommendation of the day. It's a movie and it's called Mega Mind. Yes, so that's a recommendation from us to you. Do watch this interesting movie. And before we end our episode for today, we have the Locate the Word segment coming up for you. Here it is. Find all of the words hidden in this letter maze. And let me tell you, these could be written vertically, horizontally, or even diagonally. And all the words are from today's episode. So try having a keen observation and give me the words quickly in the chat box. I can already see those words there. Yes, that is correct. We have music as the first one that we get here in the chat box. What are the others? You need to be really quick. They have to be meaningful words. Laugh is right. How can we miss laugh? Okay, so let me reveal that there. Bored, music, and laugh. Yes, bored because we had one of the types of stand-up comedy, deadpan, in which the whole point was that the comedian uses a bored tone, right? So yes, thanks again for that. Muhua gives me this emoji here. And yes, so these were the three words in our Locate the Word segment. And thanks again for being a participative audience here. And before I end the broadcast, let me give you a quick roundup of all that we learned today, the different types of stand-up comedy. Here is the list of the different types of stand-up comedy we spoke about today. There is slapstick, there is deadpan comedy, self-deprecating comedy, topical humor, observational humor, black comedy, character comedy, and musical comedy, right? So tomorrow again, we will be coming up with the other different types of comedy performances that can be done. Yes, I hope you had a lot of information from today's episode and you also had fun, as much fun as I had in bringing this episode out to you. And before I end the broadcast, I would also urge all of you to do this interesting project work where you can think of different other different types of stand-up comedy performances that have not been spoken in today's episode, right? So think out of the box and write some more types of stand-up comedy. Yes. And for tomorrow, let me tell you, we have the second version or the second episode of types of comedy, where we bring out the other different types of comedy that we have not covered in today's episode. Yes. So I will be meeting you tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. India time. I'm Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. And until the time we meet next tomorrow, I would want all of you to take good care of yourself, and have a happy time. Bye bye.